We just don't pay ransom. It is our policy. This was not ransom. Any suggestion that it had anything to do with ransom is absolutely and utterly false. These were two separate processes run by two separate teams. Now, yes, they were done simultaneously, and so I understand the coincidental nature here, the timing, but absolutely had nothing to do with ransom. We do not and will not pay ransom.
He said that repeatedly during that interview last hour. Wall Street Journal broke the story. Mary Kissel is a member of the Journal's editorial board and the host of Opinion Journal on WSJ Video. How are you? And
great to see you, Bill.
Good morning, Mary. A lot to go through. This is a large sum of money to a state sponsor of terror, and you have no control in cash payments as to how they use it.
Well, there are a lot of strands here, Bill. Let's start from the beginning. First of all, it's ludicrous to suggest that this wasn't a ransom payment. Iran is calling it a ransom payment. If it looks like a ransom payment and it smells like a ransom payment, that's exactly what it is.
This is a very important point. You're saying the Iranians are calling this a ransom payment. That's how the story reads.
The administration wants you to believe that this payment is solely about money that was owed to Iran because of a deal that was done in the 70s under the prior regime. That's a dispute that was being litigated in The Hague. But, Bill, why wouldn't the administration just continue to litigate that in The Hague? What's better, doing a settlement and a ransom that sets a terrible precedent and gives money to a state sponsor of terror, or letting a legal process play out in an international court? I know which one I would choose.
This is another great point, because what they have said is that they've saved the American taxpayer a lot of money. Well, how do you know that? Maybe you win the case.
Even John,
you are deciding for yourself the outcome of that.
And even if they had won the case in The Hague, and that's a big if, would we have paid? That's an outstanding question. We don't know that. What we do know is that this sets a terrible precedent for Iran. It was done in a way to evade U.S. sanctions. We enlisted the Dutch and the Swiss in this subterfuge. And we've once again demonstrated to our allies in the region that we can't be trusted. And by the way, Bill, this does nothing to stop Iran from continuing its bad behavior. What's happened in the year since this Iran deal? They've launched ballistic missile tests. We know that our nuclear weapons inspectors can't get into where they need to go. We've had Soleimani, their head general, going to Moscow. We have them funding terror in Yemen, Shiite militias in Iraq, backing Assad in Syria. This is a record of bad behavior that has happened after this deal that the administration told us was going to help promote peace and stability.
Can I add one more to your list there? Since the money was paid, 3 Americans have been taken hostage in Iran.
Well, exactly right. And more will be taken hostage, because we've set a precedent now that if Iran continues to act badly, we will reward them. And also, Bill, let's note, too, they've taken hostages of other nationalities as well.
More with Kirby from last hour. Watch.
It's their money. This was $400 million in a trust fund that had been frozen back in the late 70s, early 80s. So this was a long-standing claim. It was their money. And as the president said at the time, and we spoke to this at the time, that now with the prisoners released, now with the Iran deal done, it made no sense for us to continue to drag out this claim.
Couple things on that. It was their money. He said that repeatedly. I found a statement from John Kerry on January 17 where he talked about the money being paid. I did not find anything from the White House and President Obama yet.
Again, the case hadn't been litigated. When Kirby says it's their money, he is lying. The case had not been litigated yet in The Hague. And again, even if it were litigated, and let's say hypothetically Iran had won the case, what is better? Giving money to a state sponsor of terrorism that we know is actively working against U.S. interests, or letting this play out? I would rather wait 20 years and pay interest on that rather than to give the money to the mullahs in Iran, who are working against U.S. interests in the region, who are committed to destroying Israel. Everything that Kirby said there is spin and has to be taken with a big grain of salt.
Let me come back to that answer. On January 17 from the White House, the president said with the nuclear deal done, prisoners released, the time was right to resolve this decades-old dispute.
Why?
No mention of a cash payment.
No mention of a ransom, because he knew that Congress would go crazy. This is the reason the president didn't want to go to Congress in the first place, because he knew if he put this deal forward as a treaty, it would never get passed. That's why he went around Congress to get the deal done, why we're only now finding out all of these details post facto, after a year after the deal has been done. This is going to go down as one of the worst deals in our history.
More than the Taliban 5 and Bo Bergdahl.
I think
it's a pretty high mark.
So.
Hillary Clinton last week in Philadelphia, in her acceptance speech, she said, "We put the lid on a nuclear program."
No,
let me be clear. She didn't say we destroyed their nuclear program. She didn't say we prevented them from ever being nuclear. We put a lid on the program. That is a careful distinction, Mary.
It's a careful distinction because what the Iran deal did was rubber stamp Iran's nuclear program after a period of time. It doesn't require Iran to get rid of their program. It just says, wait a little bit, Iran, and then after a period of time, you can be welcomed into the international community as a nuclear power. And Bill, the great risk here is a nuclear race in the Middle East, because that is what President Obama and his team, and remember, Hillary Clinton is behind this deal. That's exactly the situation that they've set up.
Mary Kissel from the Wall Street Journal. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
In a moment.